Oops.
Oh.
Hello.
Deja vu.
I pressed the wrong button, everybody. Hello.
Hello. That scream gets me every time at the end there.
Yeah.
Good intro, though. So how have you guys been doing this past week?
Not too bad. Not too bad. I'm a little bit
Jamie's-
more stable,
Jamie's
but I'm still
feeling
having
better,
issues.
everybody.
But that goes up and down. But yeah, I'm here this week, and
He's having problems, bless him.
Well, we're glad that you're okay to join us today.
And before we go anywhere, I need to know.
need to know.
What do you need to know?
What the bloody hell is a ferret flinging fire with good time?
She has explained it.
Oh, has she? I was
in
busy. I was busy doing the intro. What is it?
Apparently. Go ahead, Jamie.
No, you go ahead, because you probably explain it better, because you...
She just said that she's compared it to picture a ferret chucking wood instead of a woodchuck. Kelly's been very busy. I was telling you guys earlier, this girl, she's like nonstop. I don't know where she gets her energy.
How much wood can a woodchuck?
Yeah. But she's constantly doing something in some kind of work or fashion around. I mean, she must be dead tired. Kelly, you must be dead tired by the time you go to sleep at night. That's all I can say. But she gets an image on Facebook, this amount of wood that she's been chopping. So yeah, that woodchuck has some competition.
And also, Danielle, what question did you ask me just before we come on air?
Yeah.
I can't say.
I know. Well.
I was sitting here minding my own business, getting ready to do a very serious show about a ghost ship, and Danielle Elvis asked me a ridiculous question.
Well, we were talking about your pets and their ages, and she has cats and dogs, so I just wanted to know.
I was talking about the cats, and Danielle said, "How old is your oldest pussy?" And I was like, "Personal. It's about personal love."
So, if you guys ever wanted to see Lisa speechless.
Did you just really ask me how old my pussy was?
Oh my God. Your cat. I got the answer though. 9 years, right?
Yeah, my pussy is 9 years old, everybody.
I would say she's beautiful, but then we get really personal. And
don't go there. It's getting weird. It's getting weird, Danielle. It's getting weird.
No, she does. If she ever shows her on film or on the camera, you guys.
Well, that's not the 9-year-old one. That's the 7-year-old one.
Oh, okay.
But Maya, aren't you?
Yeah.
They're all beautiful, though. They're all beautiful. But Danielle particularly likes Maya.
I do. Maya and I have good conversations together. We understand each other.
She meows at her.
Yeah.
I do. We know what we're saying.
I think she's actually swearing at her, but we've not deciphered that yet because I don't talk cat.
Well, for those of us just joining today, maybe for the first time, I'm obviously Danielle. We got
I'm
Lisa.
Jamie and Lisa. Yeah.
I'm Lisa.
Hello to the new subscribers and the old, obviously, but we've accumulated a couple of new people. So
if you're new, welcome to the Madhouse, and if you're old, welcome back.
And as you know,
you crazy twat.
Well, yeah.
Yeah. She was about to argue that. She was like, "Where you go?" Then she said, "Yeah, I'm in her own right." So
they keep coming back.
In our own right, we are crazy, that's for sure. And we've developed a great friendship. So I'm glad that we've been able to carry on into the Curious Casefiles, which brings us today. As you know, we cover things all history, mystery, and crime. And we have really delved in some really serious, scary, tragic, heart-wrenching stories.
Yeah.
We are now at episode 20.
20,
which is pretty remarkable. So, and we've obviously made some good friends in those who are following us and watching our show, and we greatly appreciate your support. Before we get started, please like and subscribe if you haven't, and share.
That little thumb up, everybody.
That thumb up. The more you share, the more we get seen and beat those algorithms and everything like that. And so
tell all your friends.
If they don't like it, just jump on their computer and do it for them without them knowing.
Yeah, without them knowing. Well, you know what the thing is?
On your Facebook, your Twitter, Facebook, your Twitter, and everywhere. Just let everybody know that you're watching us crazy twats and that we're amazing.
Yeah. And that
even if Danielle is a massive pervert.
Not a massive pervert.
I'm not
even
massive.
if Danielle is a tiny pervert.
Oh, girls got to get smiles somehow these days. That's all I can say. But anyway, back to our show. Yeah, like Jamie said, they may not like it or what have you. Each week, we're going to bring you something different, and we're 20 episodes in, so most of you probably already know that. So there's going to be times that might not be your thing, but hopefully you still stick with us and follow us, because we are going to.
That's not acceptable. You've got to like everything.
Okay, you have to like everything. You have to like each one of us. And
I really like Jamie.
Oh, I knew you were going to say that.
No, we do. We love Jamie. How can you not like Jamie? But anyway, getting on to today's show, because I'm sure the new subscribers are like, what the hell? Aren't we going to talk about something?
I think we're going to get on to the actual what they do.
We're 9 minutes in and they've still not even told us what the episode's about. No, it was on the description. So
yeah, so we're going to talk about the Mary Celeste, and it is considered a ghost ship.
And isn't that a pretty picture? Look.
I love that picture. Yeah, well, mostly you like purple, but that's beautiful.
That's why I picked it, because it's purple.
Yep, I love it. So for those who might not be familiar with the Mary Celeste, she's got quite the history. And we're about to go into that for you. So on December 13th of 1872, 3 men sailed the Mary Celeste into the port of Gibraltar. The brigantine was described as tattered and ragged. And for those like myself who have no idea what a brigantine is or was before I did this, it's a ship.
You're going to tell me, because I was just then going to say what. By the way, we don't know anything about Danielle's telling us a story this week, so me and Jamie's just here to butt in. And what's a brigantine, Danielle Elvis?
Well, I believe we have a picture to show, and it's a ship. It's a ship with at least 2 sails on the main mast, and I believe like the front is usually squared off. So that's the perfect example right there of a brigantine, which I had no clue of.
See, you've learned something. I've learned something. I'm going to forget it in 5 minutes, but it's amazing.
Nah, you'll learn a bit more here. So these 3 men, they had salvaged the ship after finding it adrift in the mid-Atlantic Ocean, and they had been aboard.
Allegedly.
Now, they themselves had been aboard a brigantine named the Dei Gratia, which in Latin is by the grace of God. And the Dei Gratia, coincidentally, was also sailing out of New York, and it actually set out just 8 days after the Mary Celeste did. They were halfway between the Azores Islands and Portugal when they found her, and we have a map of that as well.
Oh, sorry, I was busy.
That's okay.
I was busy agreeing with Julie.
Yeah, it doesn't take much. I don't know when this happened to me, this whole blushing incident.
She's
but
like
anyway.
a Michigan Moodring, that's her name.
Yeah.
And here's Danielle's map.
Yep. So there we go. So you see Spain, there's Portugal, the Azores, this little group of islands. To the left of that, not pictured, would be the U.S. and New York, the port where she was sailing from. So they were halfway between there when the crew of the Dei Gratia spotted the lifeless ship, and no one seemed to be on board. And what was found on the ship actually left more questions than answers. And to this day, pretty much the same thing. So let's go into
what I do know about it. There's a lot of weirdness. Weird.
Yeah, a lot. Like I said, for those that know the story, it's intriguing. For those that haven't, hopefully,
I think I know it, but you're probably going to educate me and tell me things I didn't know.
Well, I knew I've been taught at school and that, and a couple of times actually.
See, I didn't get that. I got World War II at school.
Well, we did. That was mainly Royals and World War II. That was Royals, constant.
Yeah. I don't remember learning anything
family. Like, when you're in the UK, you get the royal family shoved
all
down
the
your
kings,
throat.
queens, and
all that good stuff, right?
Yeah.
Well, the backstory and the history of the Mary Celeste becomes quite relevant to her final destiny, and this is because sailors, especially sailors, are known to be quite superstitious when it comes to the vessels that they sail. And a blackened, jinked, or bad luck ship, it's something that would keep any new crew leery from sailing on that said ship. So the Mary Celeste had that kind of dark history.
Yeah, you can kind of understand, really, can't you? If someone mentions something about bad luck and that on a boat, and you're on, this little floaty thing in the middle of the ocean.
Like, you would be a bit like if somebody renamed about the Titanic, you wouldn't really want to get on it, would you?
No, right? No. Got to come up with something better than that for one thing. But so her story begins way back in 1860, and
I remember it well.
You remember it well? Yeah. With a man from Nova Scotia, which I have an image of that as well. Oh, and the man by the name of Joshua Dewis.
Oh, there's a picture of Nova. I was looking for a picture of a man. Here we go. That's Nova Scotia. Yeah. I don't know what's coming, so I'm just yeah.
So Nova Scotia's there circled in red, and to the lower right is a little bit more zoomed in, and this is Spencer's Island in the Bay of Fundy, where a lot of sailing vessels
Did you say the Bay of Fundy?
The Bay of Fundy, Fundy.
Like
yeah.
Sounds like a really fun place. I bet it's boring now.
Yeah.
I bet it's rubbish.
Well, then it was a well-known shipbuilding area due to its natural resources and plentiful lumber. And starting from the early 1800s, thousands of ships were actually built from here, from the minds of great engineers and, of course, their imaginations. Joshua Dewis was known to build mostly small schooners, which were similar to these brigantines, but they were like a little bit smaller and they were shaped just a little bit differently. But they were used for transporting goods back and forth from marketplaces, which were located around that bay. But he was looking to expand his business, as any good businessman would, and he moved to the town of Spencer's Island, where he could do just that. And there was an abundance, like I said, of timber that was to be had there, and it was just the exact kind of setting and the supply source needed to step up his success. Now, a side note, and ironically, Spencer's Island isn't even actually an island. It's part of the mainland, but it just so happened to be named after a small island that was just off the coast by the same name.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, a little strange, I know. The little island of Spencer's Island was behind it, but...
Wait a minute. You got a little island called Spencer's Island.
That's not an island.
No, that is an island.
Oh, it is an island.
Off the coast.
Yeah.
And then just over the water a little bit, there's an inland place called Spencer's Island.
Right.
So if you say, I'm from Spencer's Island, people are going to...
That's going to be really confusing.
That's confusing.
Yeah.
What?
Can you imagine doing a surprise visit on someone and you end up going to the island? You're like, oh, for fuck's sake.
I went to the wrong one. Bollocks. Yeah.
I guess it would be like, are you from the mainland or are you from the island?
Is it still called that, or is that just in 1860?
No, it's still there today. So this particular Spencer's Island was part of the mainland, and where
Spencer? You don't know.
Who one of the original settlers there. There was actually Spicer family, Spencer family, all of that living in the area.
Know. She's so. I thought I just flummoxed her, but she knew.
Yeah.
Well, anyway,
yeah.
Before you ask me something that I really don't know. Upon the completion in the spring, the ship was ready to be launched. And at that time, it wasn't named the Mary Celeste. Her launching name was chosen by Joshua Dewis himself. And for unspecified reasons, he chose her to be christened Amazon. Now, it's commonly known that, most people know anyway, that ships are given female names. I think cars too, right?
Yeah, I think, I don't know. Is it because it's mainly like men have more of an interest in objects and vehicles and stuff? Maybe.
You probably don't know the answer to this, but I'm going to say it anyway because it just popped into my mind. This is a transport ship for like sending goods back and forward.
Yes.
And it's called Amazon.
Yes.
Is this where?
Oh no!
Is this where Jeff Bezos got the name Amazon from? Is he named Amazon after the Mary Celeste?
Wow, that's actually.
That blew my mind.
Wow.
We're not going down a new rabbit hole, everybody. Fuck the Mary Celeste. We're not going about
Did he name his company after the Mary Celeste's original name? Because
that's
doing the same thing.
That's quite possible because you know what they are like.
Yeah, that's very interesting. So, like again, but he never really specified why. But it is commonly, like I said, known that they name it females. He went with the name Amazon, and there is speculation that he named it after the strong mythological women of the Amazon.
Yeah.
You got those Amazon women.
Strong. Yeah, strong and brave and.
Yeah. So, but there's no proof.
There's a bit of a random word about some very sturdy women.
Yeah, Bob, she does do it every time. Yeah.
What have I done? I've done nothing.
She blows our minds down these rabbit holes.
But no, it's just they're doing the same shit. So Jeff Bezos has named his company. I've decided he named his company after a jinxed ship.
Oh, it could be a coincidence.
But I do believe it is jinxed. Obviously, since we're talking about it, it probably is.
Well, and the more we find out as we go on, the more you're going to understand. So, the launching of any ship, but specifically Amazon, because she was kind of the first of her kind there.
Was she like the biggest one or something?
Yeah, it was a big deal. It was a big deal, and all the launchings were usually celebrated. So they would make signs and banners for upcoming events. I have an example of that here. And they would often follow the launching of the ships with afternoon tea and a kind of like a rummage sale. So it was kind of a big party event for what
tea meeting.
Meeting.
Fancy sale.
Fancy sale, everybody. There's a fancy sale.
Yeah, it was a big reason to get together.
Fancy pants.
Yeah.
That's not the actual Amazon, though, is it?
No, that's just a recreation of the name and how.
So somebody didn't name their ship after this, because that would be.
Oh, they could have done.
If they had the legal rights to, I'm sure that somebody could have. So.
The Amazon fancy sale.
It was designed and built with 2 deck houses. So like I said, it was a good sized ship, 2 masts and a square stern. It was 99 feet long with a breadth or a width of 25 and a half feet. And she had a gross tonnage of 198 and a half tons. Now the ship was supposed to be the start of great things for Duis.
It's a big girl.
A big girl. And a big thing for Duis and Spencer's Island to hopefully bring in more business, more company business and money for everybody. So, but there seemed to be a bit of bad luck for the vessel from the get-go. And as it said before, bad luck, especially with sailing ships, was never a good sign of things to come. No. So her first captain was a young newlywed, Robert McClellan, and he was to sail the ship loaded with lumber to the nearby town of 5 Islands, which
is that an island or is that not an island as well?
You know, the 5 Islands, that's a good question, because based on what we know, I was going to look that up, but considering it was the town of 5 Islands, I think that much of it was part of the mainland also. I don't know what's going on with these people.
You need to stop naming things on the mainland after islands.
I'm obsessed with island.
I will look it up. So it was going to go to these nearby towns, and then that would be then taken on a transatlantic voyage to the Thames in London. However, Captain McClellan fell a little under the weather at the time of the maiden voyage, about the time that they were going to be launching it, and he wasn't going to let that stop him, though. And he felt the sea air would probably do him good once he was out there, but as it turns out, he developed pneumonia, and the first mate had to turn the ship around and go back to the shore to let the captain get some care. And after they got him to the home of the shipbuilders, or one of the shipbuilders and investors, he did succumb to his illness, and Captain McClellan died.
The maiden voyage, the captain died.
Yeah.
Wait, just stop. Just don't do any more. That's not good. No.
I know. His body was taken back aboard the Amazon, and they sailed to the nearby town of Economy, and this was the captain's home port. So, unfortunately, instead of delivering timber as planned for her first sail, the Amazon's first delivery was the body
of the captain.
Her first captain. And I know. And his newlywed, they were just married, so his widow was obviously distraught and heartbroken. So, I think I have a picture of his tombstone, and it's still there today in the town of Economy. There's the Economy Cemetery. I know.
Here's a picture of why is that written all in a circle? Could they not have fitted it straight? Robert W.
It's been there for a long time, so I mean, everything looks a little tilted.
He died on September the 22nd, 1820. No, was that when he was born? He was born September the 22nd, 1826, and he died on June. Is that the 13th? Did that say, or the 18th?
Yeah, there's zoom in there. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, unfortunately, her maiden voyage did not have any luck tied with it at all. And there was a new captain that was assigned to take over the ship. His name was.
You wouldn't want that job, would you?
I know.
Like on the maiden voyage, the captain died, and it was
Well, at least at this point, it was due to illness prior to even them setting.
Yeah, so it wasn't directly associated with the boat itself at this point.
Yeah. So Jack Parker.
Tell me that there's something coming.
Oh, there's something coming. Jack Parker was the new captain, and he took on the mission of sailing the ship to London as originally planned. However, once again, as bad luck would have it,
did he die as well?
Well, the ship became snared on fishing wires before it could even set out across the Atlantic. They were just towing it out. It got snared in fishing wire, and it had to sit there anchored for days until they could repair it.
How does it? It's a massive ship.
Yeah.
I think a fishing wire is not going to affect it.
Yeah.
Well, I guess there was some serious fishing going on in the pier in the bay there.
Extreme fishing.
Extreme fishing.
Well, I mean, that was their livelihood. So
yeah.
So her next round of less than fortunate events came not too long after that. The Amazon was sailed to London, and it picked up its next shipment of lumber and was sent to Portugal. Now, the route took her down the River Thames and then out into the Strait of
Gibraltar. Question.
Sure.
So they got all this lumber in America.
Yeah.
Took it to London because London needed lumber. So they dropped off all this lumber, and then they've got new lumber to go to Portugal. Couldn't they just?
Well, it went from Nova Scotia.
Yeah, but couldn't they just, if they already had lumber in London that was going to Portugal, couldn't they just use their own? And then that one could have went, it saved the
There
trip.
might be different types, like softwood, hardwood.
Yeah, there were different types.
All right, Jamie.
We can't ask.
All right, Jamie with the big brain.
Yes. And you had to go where it was plentiful too, right? You had to go where they had the most of it. So unfortunately, when it was going out into the Strait of Dover, it was here that she collided with a British brig, and British brig began to sink.
Oh no!
The entire crew had to abandon ship, and they climbed aboard Amazon for safety.
Oh, don't go in there; it's jinxed.
Oh yeah, but these sort of things do happen. I mean, we have like boat shows here, and there was this old-fashioned boat, 200-year-old boat, and this other boat drove into it, and it actually just fell apart there. And I was like, oh my god, this really ancient boat has just been destroyed by this twat who can't park his boat properly, if that's what you do, park a boat. But yeah,
not good.
Anyway,
we keep it on that. Sorry, Daddy, continue with your amazing story.
Well, the crew that was on the British brig obviously got on the Amazon, and they sailed to Dover, and once again the Amazon had to be assessed for damage and repaired. It had just gotten repaired from the snared wire. Now it's repaired from this collision with the brig. And after repair and delivery of her cargo.
Jamie's got a question.
At least they had wood to repair it with.
Well, good point. But they did deliver her cargo.
Right.
And from there, the ship sailed to France, to the city of Marseille in November of 1861. We have a painting now. It was the actually first known image of the Amazon, and it was painted by Henri del Pellegrini, who was a famous maritime artist, and it was painted while it was set in the port of Marseille. So that is the exact image of.
It's not that great though, is it?
You say he was a great maritime painter, that water looks really.
That water looks like a child painted it, and he's
missed a bit. The boat is good.
He was well known for his time. Yeah.
I think it's a bit shit, to be honest. But,
I can't say that.
In all fairness, it's a pretty old image too. So
look at the water; it's crap. He's not even put any effort into that water.
All right, you know what, Lisa? For your next assignment next week, you are going to draw and paint a picture of your version of the Amazon.
No.
Let's compare waters.
No, Danielle, I'm not going to draw and paint.
No, okay. No. Well, beyond this point, the Amazon sailed without incident, at least for a little while, importing and exporting through the Atlantic and the Mediterranean waters, and then to and from the West Indies. It did often sail back home, though, to Nova Scotia on occasion, especially that's where a lot of the guys were from. And so it was nice that they could go to their home port at some points. Now, by now.
Otherwise, they would just never get home. They'd just be stranded in the West Indies.
By now, she'd had her third commander, a man named Captain William.
The second one get fired for bashing into a vessel in Britain.
They never really said what happened to him, but yeah, I would think
You're fired, mate. I mean, seriously.
Well, it took time to repair and everything anyway, so it's possible he went on to captain another ship while she was being repaired, and at that point they needed somebody new. So a man by the name of Captain William Thompson in 1867, he commanded her, and he brought the ship to Halifax, bringing in corn. And Halifax is in Nova Scotia too, for those that aren't aware. Over the next few years, the investors and the owners in Spencer's Island, Nova Scotia, weren't too pleased with Captain Thompson. So I'm not really sure why this is, but I have to say, were a good judge of character based on what we find out.
Oh, what's he done, Danielle? I can smell gossip.
Well, while it was in Halifax and docked there, they had sent word to Captain Thompson that he was to keep the ship there, and while it was docked, they were going to send a replacement captain.
Oh, he's getting fired. But one of the investors' sons, named George Spicer, he had been a crewman on the Amazon under Captain Thompson. And as soon as Thompson received notice that he was going to be relieved of duty, he discharged Spicer from the ship.
Oh,
can he do that? I thought it's like the owner's son.
Well, I mean, he's the captain of the ship, so I'm sure
he didn't own it, though.
He probably had part ownership. A lot of captains had part ownership. I'm not exactly sure what his stake was in it. But regardless, whether he could or couldn't, he discharged him, and then he took the Amazon up north.
Well, like stole it.
Yeah, basically.
Kind of technically, yes and no, because again, he was the captain of the ship at that time, and he was still in charge of what goes on.
But he stole it though, because he got told he was getting fired, and he stole it, didn't he?
Basically. So he took it up north to Cape Breton, which I have a picture of that as well.
Oh, do you? A minute.
Yeah.
I was that engrossed in the story.
That's okay.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah, so way up in the tip there.
Did you draw that circle, Danielle?
I drew that circle.
You
Isn't that lovely?
try harder.
Nearly as good as that goes water.
Yeah, you need to try harder. That is not a circle, love.
Okay. It's at least it points it out, right?
Yeah.
Got it shaped around there. So he anchored there while he was waiting for a shipment of coal. Now, this still would have been in the month of November in 1861. And it just so happened that the Amazon's insurance policy, yes, these ships had insurance policies. The Amazon's insurance policy specifically prohibited her from sailing around Cape Breton after November 1st due to the harsh winter storms that were prevalent in that area.
Well,
and
you wouldn't there's not going to be a storm on the 30th of October.
Well, they had to have a cutoff date. I mean, anything happening after October 30th.
Did he know that and done it on purpose?
Yeah, he did it. He was like,
Yeah.
Yeah,
it was in the insurance policy. But and this was it was quite likely a common specification in insurance policies for that same reason, because of the storms that were known to be going around. And sure enough, a strong gale had supposedly developed that was powerful enough to put the Amazon onto the beach.
Mm-hmm.
So after taking off with it,
how convenient.
Yeah, he had to report. Captain Thomas had to report back to the owners in Spencer's Island after what he did. Took off with it. He had to report back to them that
I've stole your boat and I've took it somewhere it's not supposed to be, and it's now on the beach,
and it's wrecked. So he badly damaged it, and it would need a lot of expensive repair, expensive and extensive. But since it was a violation of a specific action established in that insurance policy, the repair costs wasn't going to be covered.
Oh, no.
So at this point, the owners had no choice but to abandon her, which is what they would do if you could no longer afford or take care of it. It was just abandoned.
Left it on the beach.
Mm-hmm. Now, there is speculation.
If it's actually on the beach in the first place.
Well, whether it was on the beach.
Crashed.
Are we just taking his word for this?
Yes and no. I think it was on the beach. However, there is a lot of speculation as to whether she received as much damage as Thompson said she did.
Oh,
yeah.
And the reason for this, very, very soon after the previous owners were forced to forfeit her, a new owner made claim of it. And his name was Alexander McBean. And under him, the ship was then registered to Sydney, Nova Scotia. So
at the time, I'd be investigating if he knew Alexander McBean, and if they were in cahoots.
Yeah, well, you probably aren't far off. And one of the other reasons that there was such speculation and suspicion around this is because the whole timing thing. Under Nova Scotia law at the time, a vessel could not be registered under a new port unless it was seaworthy. And
there was nothing wrong with it, was there?
Well, within a week's time.
A week?
So Amazon was
bullshitting. It was
re-registered under a new port and then also purchased again and re-registered. So
it was that badly damaged that they couldn't afford to fix it, but they done it in a week.
Yeah.
It must not have been.
It was bullshit. You lied. Liar. Yeah. Shame on you, boat thief and liar.
It couldn't have been in that bad a shape. And McBean, he turned around and quickly resold it to a man named John Beatty. Now, Beatty owned the ship for only a year.
John Baby.
No,
what a cute name.
So that massive man baby.
Yeah. Right, anyway, carry on.
He owned the ship for only like about a year before it had yet another wreck in Maine.
What?
And it was once again abandoned.
Oh my God.
There's a problem with this boat, right?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but I get caught up in fishing line.
It's a massive boat. It gets caught in a little fishing line. It's that crap that it gets caught in a fishing line. And then it gets beached.
Captain Cunty Pants.
And people just keep abandoning it.
Yeah, well, from here, the authorities, they towed the ship to New York for a public auction. Richard Haynes was the man who purchased the ship for $1,750, which...
And who gets that money?
Who gets the money?
If it's like being abandoned, who's auctioning it off?
Probably like the Maritime Council or, whatever they had going on at that. Because there was a lot to do. Like if you claimed an abandoned ship, there's more to it, but you could stand to earn the money yourself. But in this particular situation, she was just abandoned out there. It was towed for a public auction. So it could have been like the insurance company. It could have been the Maritime Council or whatever they had at that time.
Why did they not do that the first time it was abandoned in?
Somebody right away was willing to take care of it. And probably because, like you mentioned, those two gentlemen were in cahoots.
Oh, yeah, they were.
So one could take over for the other. Whereas in this case, the Amazon was just abandoned. And like I said, it was towed in for public auction. So like I said, Richard Haynes, he purchased the ship for $750, which in today's terms, it would be like equivalent to about $38,000.
That's quite cheap for like a massive ship.
But not back then, you know.
Yeah. And the ship was now registered in New York instead of Nova Scotia. Now, unfortunately, because the vessel was originally a foreign registered ship, Haynes would have to pay an import duty.
Does that count as foreign, even though it's still in like the Americas?
Yeah, because it's registration. It was registered under foreign waters in Nova Scotia. So he had to pay, tax or import duties on it. And that way it could be registered in the US and sail under an American flag. But apparently he chose to skip paying this fee, and he just slapped a new name on her and was going to take his chances that no one would recognize her or notice that it was the old Amazon.
You shouldn't have to pay taxes on that's stupid, though, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, taxation without representation.
Taxation is theft.
Taxation is theft.
So he thought just disguising it slightly, changing the name is going to work, even though,
it's a new boat.
Well,
let me guess what he called it.
Haynes, however, was eventually confronted about the Amazon, and he began to claim that he had to replace much of the original, including a new keel, a new stern, and most of the hull. And according to him, it was more than twice the cost of building the original ship. So he justified.
You just build a new boat, wouldn't you? Wait, what?
I mean, you would think, but this was his justification.
He didn't say what he called it. The Mary Celeste, didn't he?
Well, we haven't got there yet. We did, but we haven't announced it.
Why would you fix an old boat that's going to cost double the amount it costs to make a new boat?
How old is this boat actually?
It's only like a year old or something, isn't it?
Yes, that's not an old boat, is it?
1860 was, yeah, it wasn't that old at the time. No, but she
just build a new boat, though, wouldn't you? If it's like
she sure had been through a lot already.
Existing boat, and you can spend X amount to fix it. Or you can take half of that amount and get a brand new spanking boat that's not jinxed.
But let's not forget, too, that these guys were all scammers from the sounds of it. And he said that he made all those repairs so that he could justify not having to pay import. Like, why should I pay these fees when I've spent all this money and put into it? He said he might as well have built a brand new ship from scratch anyway. Now, again, it's not confirmed if he really did spend all of that money. And many historians say, no.
I want to see the receipts.
Yeah. It was Richard Haynes that renamed the ship, and he called her the Mary Celeste.
I knew it.
Yeah. Which translates to Mary of Heaven or Heavenly Mary. He was the captain of the ship, and he sailed her for about less than a year before it was seized at a sheriff's sale. Why was it seized? It was seized because he just wasn't making a profit. He couldn't make any money off of it.
They weren't seized because they were like, this boat's stolen, sir, and
has bad luck.
Yeah.
So he'd gone into great debt, and just 10 months after he purchased the ship, he lost it. Which brings us
and all that money.
I know.
Allegedly.
Which brings us to James Winchester. James Winchester.
You make guns. Is that the gunman?
So, in speaking of James Winchester specifically, he was part of the J.H. Winchester Company, and they were mostly dealing with ships and nautical, the whole sea end of the deal. They weren't into the rifles and such, but I do tend to think he may have been related to the Winchesters that were the owners of the rifle business, the gun business.
Yeah, and then they used their little family boat to go to California and take all the wood so that Sarah Winchester could build a weird house.
Which is a wonderful story and something I hope we get into at another date.
Weird house.
Yeah, very weird. So anyway, I'm sorry?
I think it was.
I thought it was Sarah. I'm pretty sure it's Sarah.
Yeah, I think you got it right.
Yeah. So anyway, James Winchester, he became the new owner of Mary Celeste, and he had been a former sea captain, hopefully, and had experience. Ironically, Winchester had a lot in common with Mary Celeste in her route anyway. Both were birthed, if you want to say, so to speak, in Nova Scotia, and both had spent time in Maine, and both became American citizens, so to speak, in New York, which at that time was the new home port for Mary Celeste. Now, Winchester, he wasn't without his share of bad luck when it came to Mary Celeste. Soon after he acquired her, he was approached by the deputy surveyor about how Richard Haynes, the previous owner, had not paid the required import fees on her.
Oh, they're after their taxes. You can't
He's not
escape
paid
them.
things. What a shock. So the little con man hasn't paid his bills.
But
is that right?
Didn't he auction it off?
Richard Haynes bought it. You're talking about after when
he bought it. He lost it because he was in debt, and like the sheriffs have auctioned it off. So that's not his responsibility, is it?
No, not really. Which is why Winchester had issue with this.
I should think so.
Why should he be responsible, right? Not to mention. Oh, did I? Oh, okay. Well, not to mention that this surveyor here, he basically told Winchester that, oh, you can just pay me cash and we'll take care of the matter right now, and then everything. There won't be any further issues. We'll take care of it. Well, it was basically blackmail, and Winchester refused to partake in the game. He called him out on it, and so
good for him.
Yeah. So the deputy then chose to finally go the legal route, and he took him to court. But based on what we know and the history of it, and Winchester not really having responsibility of this, he was up for the challenge, and he did ultimately win the case.
Good.
Yep. But if you think that things got better for Winchester and the Mary Celeste, you'd be mistaken. So,
knowing what I know, like the very little that I do know, no, it didn't.
Now, we already had surmised that Captain William Thompson from Nova Scotia was a scammer. If you recall, he basically...
You don't say!
Yeah, he's the one that took the Amazon at the time and found out he was going to be relieved from duty, took it up past where he shouldn't have been.
Stole it, pretended that it got... Well,
it was quite obvious. It was quite obvious in his scamming themes that he was not at all honest about the thousands of dollars that in repairs that he claimed to have made.
No.
And the repairs that were necessary after the alleged extreme damage would have been substantial and should have been still relatively new, and it should have been in good shape after that. While Winchester was soon faced with a massive deception by him when he found out that the Mary Celeste was nearly completely rotten.
And only a couple of years old at this stage.
Yeah, but with all of, you think about with all of these damages and you know, not being repaired correctly, or just
not being looked after properly. Because it's just a little mobile cash cow that they're, all collecting the money on.
So it's got woodworm,
basically. And he found out that, it was going to be very expensive to rebuild and to make her seaworthy again. It would be a very expensive endeavor, totaling in that time, $11,500, which today would be $280,000.
It doesn't even bother.
This is just getting ridiculous. This is like the money pit.
It's not worth it.
Well, he did he chose to take it on and basically rebuilt her from the water line.
More money than sense.
Yeah, from the water line up, he had it rebuilt. And by the time it was completed, she even had an extra deck and modifications to her rigging were done. So the Mary Celeste originally, when the Amazon had a tonnage of 198.5 tons, but now that went up to 282 tons.
So he's added 50% onto it.
Yeah. In order to pay for the expensive rebuild, Winchester had to sell a third of his interest in the ship to a Captain Benjamin Spooner Briggs of Massachusetts. And it was Briggs who became the new commander of Mary Celeste, apparently her 6th captain over 11 years. And it was
a mess, isn't it?
Yeah, it was Captain Briggs that would probably be the most notable of her commanders.
Yeah, I recognize his name.
Due to the circumstances that brings us to today's Curious Casefiles mystery. So, showing you an image of Captain Benjamin Spooner Briggs.
Oh, wait a minute, are we? Yes, we are. There we go.
He was known as a very religious and patriotic American. He was also known to be a poet and philosopher from what was gathered in his letters and his sea journals. Benjamin Briggs was also very much respected and had been a sailor for over 18 years, and he was noted as being a, quote, successful master mariner, end quote. Now, his first trip out with the Mary Celeste was with a cargo of 1,701 tons of industrial denatured alcohol, more commonly known as methylated spirits. And that was to be delivered to Genoa, Italy, from her home port in New York City. Benjamin was also a family man, and he had married his childhood sweetheart, Sarah Cobb, on September 9th of 1862. Now, oddly enough, she was also his cousin.
Oh, Benjamin!
Yeah.
Benjamin!
Yeah.
So
they were childhood sweethearts, cousins, and they were said to have been very in love and very devoted to one another.
I don't care. That's your cousin. Stop it.
Yeah, well, I think when we see, Benjamin was very much wanted.
Something's coming. I can
know.
tell. Look, she's changing colour. Something's coming. What is it, Danielle? Keep going.
Well, there is an image of his wife and one of their children.
His cousin, you mean? His cousin.
Yeah.
Is that the next image?
It is.
Let me see.
He wanted very much for his wife.
Tell me. Let me guess. Let me see.
Okay, so I don't want to be mean, but
I'm going to be mean. That is one freaky fucking baby.
She looks like a little old person. She's only
That's what happens when you marry your cousin. You have little old man babies.
Old man baby.
I know old babies are supposed to be beautiful, but that's terrifying. And reminds me,
is it just the light?
No, I was going to say the image didn't necessarily do her justice, and being bald probably didn't help. But
do not marry your cousin because you're
don't marry your
old man baby.
But he very much wanted his family with him, so at least he took Sarah and their youngest child, Sophia, who was two years old at the time, and they accompanied him on.
Can I put that baby away because it's freaking me out?
Yeah, on the maiden journey with a newly rebuilt and basically brand new ship. Now, like I said, Sophia was around 2 years old at the time. They did have another child, an older child, and his name was Arthur. Arthur was about 8 years old at the time, and he was of school age. So it was important that he stayed behind.
Is that him?
That's Arthur. Mm-hmm.
More normal looking.
Yeah, that he stayed behind and did his school.
Apart from his massive coat.
Yeah.
Maybe it was Daddy's coat. I don't know.
That's got to be, yeah.
So while he stayed back and did his schooling, he was in the care of his grandmother, and his mother, father, and younger sister went off on the voyage. Now, Briggs, he felt very pleased about the Mary Celeste, and at least he'd better have, considering he put his life savings into owning 1/3 of her. He wrote a letter to his mother just a few days prior to setting sail, and in that letter he wrote, quote, "Our vessel is in beautiful trim, and I hope we shall have a fine passage," end quote. I don't know if that was a jinxed thing to do or not.
Probably.
Yes.
But, well, there's enough jinx things going on anyway, I think. So, yeah.
So after a few
weeks, good judge of what's in beautiful trim because he married his cousin and had a weird baby.
Yeah. So she was docked in Pier 50 off of the New York City Bay there. And I think you might have just an image to give you an idea of where that was. And it was on the East River of New York City. And she was yep, there she is. And they prepared her to get ready for the voyage. Captain Briggs at the time was 37 years old, and his wife.
And so was his baby.
That's what somebody said in the chat.
Baby. Oh,
I'm sorry, I couldn't help it.
Oh my gosh. So anyway, Captain Briggs, his wife Sarah, the daughter Sophia, and the rest of his crew, which he handpicked. He handpicked his crew of trustworthy men that he felt comfortable sailing with. There was a total of 10 people on the ship. So there were 7 other crewmen along. And they set off on a journey, and it was on a Tuesday, November 5th of 1872, that they took off for sail. Now, as one can imagine, right off the bat, the weather wasn't the greatest. And so after their initial tow out to the Atlantic, they were forced to drop anchor right off of Staten Island, which is, if you don't remember, for those in Europe, Staten Island is right off of New York. No.
It's actually still in New York, isn't it?
Basically, yeah. Staten Island, yeah. So they had
where the Statue of Liberty is?
Yeah.
Was it there in that time?
Oh my God, you going to ask another really.
I think when did France give us? I think so. I think it might have been there. I don't remember. Okay, that's a different topic. I wasn't told I had to know that. So they had to stay anchored there for a couple of days and wait for calmer weathers, the wind to calm down and everything to continue their trip. So, and at that time they raised anchor and they set sail. Now, as I mentioned right off the bat when I was talking about how she was found, the De Gratia, which looked very similar because it was a brigantine as well, looked very similar to the Mary Celeste. I have an image of that also. Yeah. Now they didn't leave port. They didn't leave port at the same time. There you go. That was the De Gratia.
Right. Is that a photograph? Is it? Because I've got this strange suspicion. It's just that man's paint has been painted black and white and flipped. Which may say, if it is a real photograph, then his water picture is actually pretty damn good.
No, it's still shit.
Right. You're really dissing on that poor painter, man.
I know. I know. Anyway, yeah.
So anyway, she set sail 8 days after Mary Celeste, and she had petroleum in her cargo.
She had the sense to wait until the weather was better.
Apparently, or the captain did. Through what was recorded and known at the time, we know that the De Gratia encountered stormy weather each day for a couple weeks at least while she had set sail. And although Captain Briggs and his crew were 8 days ahead, it said that they probably encountered the same storm and that system that came through. Now, both ships would sail around the Azores Islands, but they took different paths. The De Gratia sailed north over around them, and Mary Celeste sailed south around them. But their paths did then merge or would have merged just beyond the Azores. They would have.
Is that what this map is?
Yes. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So to the right there, where that point they come together, that would have been where, obviously not at the same time because they left at different times, but that would have been the route where they would have, the latitude and longitude of where they would have met up again, and started taking the same path, I should say. And it was on December 5th of 1872 that the captain of De Gratia, his name was Captain David Morehouse. Now we're going to show you a picture, but try not to look at his eyes too long.
I'm going to look at his eyes, Danielle.
You've now said it now.
I'm going to look.
That's exactly where everyone's going to look first.
You shouldn't have told me that. Right,
okay.
You ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Oh dear God! Let's have his cousins as well. That's all I'm going to say.
I don't know. He was the captain. He was the captain of the De Gratia.
How did he say to actually command a vessel?
Well, pirates were known to have only one eye and have patches. I don't know. Maybe he sailed and.
Do you know why pirates had patches, Danielle?
Why?
It's because this is
actually. That sounds like
you thought going to make a stupid
like
joke.
Dad joke's coming.
No, what it used to be is there used to be up deck sometimes and below deck all constantly back and forwards. Obviously, down below deck, I say up deck, down deck, whatever the term is. Below deck, it was very dark.
Okay.
He's an expert on maritime terminology.
I'm an expert on pirates.
He's an expert on maritime terminology. And
all right. So it was dark.
The official name for
no, it used to be very dark down below, as you could, and if something happened, they had to go up deck. Their eyes had to adjust.
Okay.
So to do the adjusting, that's why they kept one eye dark in a dark place, one eye in a lighter place.
I think you made that up.
No, that's
really?
That sounds stupid.
So their eyes adjusted.
Oh yeah, you're just gonna get like all the light in one eye instead of.
No, apparently
Wasn't
it because they got their eye poked out in a sword fight?
Kelly Doss says he looks really high, looks really stoned.
Yeah, I put that on the screen. He does look really stoned.
I missed that. That's pretty good.
Did you see his beard? He does look a bit of a.
Yeah, let's look at his beard. I was that busy looking at. I was that busy looking at those eyes. Oh, where is it?
I think it's got actually with that patch thing with the light and dark. I think it's when they use the
that's a set. That's not a beard. That's not a beard. That's just his chops are just kept growing.
Split. Yeah.
Yeah.
Kind of looks like somebody else's beard. We know that.
Yeah.
Do they? Yes, it does.
Anyway, being the captain of that ship, his crewmen were obviously, they were always looking out. They had their spy glasses. He was summoned by two of his crew members who spotted the ship. At the time, they didn't know that it was the Mary Celeste, but they spotted the ship sailing off the port bow or the left front for the nautically illiterate and impaired people
like me and Jamie, who calls it up deck and down deck.
Up deck and down deck.
The port bow would be the left front, and that's where they were looking off when
starboard. That's a ship term.
Yeah,
I
don't
know where it is, but it's on a boat.
So through their spyglass, they could see that it was slowly floating towards them, and its sails appeared to be in poor condition, and not all of them were there.
So they didn't go to the fancy sail where they could have brought a sail on sail. Yeah.
Due to its appearance, though, Captain Morehouse gave orders to sail closer to check it out and offer any possible assistance that needed to be done. Yeah. So as they gained closer proximity to Mary Celeste, which was about 400 yards or 370 meters away, the captain called out to the ship, and he did it a few times, but he got no reply. And I said, what?
Did he say ahoy?
I would imagine like ahoy!
Ahoy! Ahoy! It's me! Hello.
Is anybody there? He probably announced himself. I'm Captain Morehouse of blah, blah, blah. And
can I just say that if I was on a boat or anywhere and somebody started shouting anything at me or ahoy with those eyes, I would ignore them. I wouldn't answer.
Well, that probably wasn't sea etiquette, Lisa, to just ignore.
Aye, Captain.
Sea etiquette. No.
Sea etiquette. Yes. So
he's stoned. And he's married. His parents are cousins. Mind you, he's married to his cousin, so he didn't care, do he? Right, continue.
And he's not very good at grooming because he just. Anyway.
No. He's just got the chops that keep going.
Yeah. So, obviously he got no reply. This is the Mary Celeste. We kind of know nobody's aboard, right? All that he could hear, or that they could hear, was the creaking of the sound of the ship being rocked and, back and forth, and while it was on the sea, the waves knocking it about. So Captain Morehouse decided to send a few of his men to board her and investigate. Smart or not smart? That's what they did. So 3 crewmen were sent. We've got first mate Oliver DeVoe, who Lisa doesn't care for the way he grooms himself either.
Oh, is that him you showed me?
It's the one you've got ready now, yeah. This is the first mate.
Doesn't that look like he's got a carpet glued to his chin?
That does, but here's the other thing what I've just noticed.
It looks like it's all matted and there's things living in there.
Look how flat the top root head is.
Yeah. It's a flat top.
There's definitely life in there.
Definitely?
And I said life, not lice, but I meant both.
Oh, Kelly, I almost said that. Hey, let it be known, I did not say it.
No, you just think
you're just thinking it, Danielle.
Oh, I didn't know it was not me that said it.
Yeah, let's put that away now because Kelly's just made it weird.
Yeah.
For those that are not watching live, Kelly just said that his beard looks like testicles. And just so you can,
yeah. Okay.
Enough of that. Let's move on.
Maybe he's got 2 pins under there.
So
maybe he's got one of them split chins and
okay.
Really
So anyway, the captain sent that gentleman who was the first mate, Oliver DeVoe, along with John Wright and John Johnson, whose parents weren't very creative. John Johnson.
Our son name's Johnson. What are we going to call our child?
Let's call him John.
Yeah.
So they rowed over to the ship, and that's when they noticed.
I think I've not got a picture of John Johnson because that's probably quite a common name back in the 1800s when they were very creative.
If Oliver's beard looked like
no, I know where you're going with this.
What does Johnson's beard look?
See, that all came from Danielle. She said it and she thought it.
She thought it. It was all Danielle. You can't blame Kelly.
Yeah.
It was Kelly a little bit. Come on.
I told you at the beginning of this episode that she's a massive pervert. I warned you.
She mood ringed herself.
Yeah, look at her. She's slightly orange now.
No, I'm fine.
She's not.
All right, so getting back to the story.
Even her nose is changing colour.
Thanks for noticing and pointing that out. So anyway, these gentlemen.
Love you.
So these seamen are just like phallic objects.
Seamen.
Yeah.
Yes. And that's when they got closer, they noticed the name, obviously, Mary Celeste on her. They also called out, just like the captain would or anybody would. They called
Ahoy
out,
there!
Ahoy there! Right. Again, to no avail. So DeVoe and Wright boarded the ship while Johnson kept the smaller boat near, and they found her completely abandoned.
Allegedly.
Some of her sails had been hanging off the sides while others were blown completely off and lost. They did search the vessel for any signs of what may have happened to the crew. There were meals that were half eaten. It looked like they had left in a hurry, according to these men. They also noticed.
Sounds like the Flannan Lighthouse thing, which is something else we'll cover at some point.
Yeah.
They also noticed that the wheel was spinning about, and the binnacle.
The what now?
The binnacle.
The binnacle.
The binnacle. I have a picture.
Are you trying to say pinnacle to me, and you're saying binnacle?
No, it's a binnacle. I have a picture of it.
Oh,
I'll say not of the actual one, but what it is. It was used to hold navigational instruments.
Wow.
Yeah, that's the binnacle. It
looks like it's a fire hydrant with 2 little model planets.
Yeah.
It's got a red pill and a blue pill.
But that's what was used to hold navigational instruments, and they found that to be on the ship. They found it knocked over
on a table. I mean, not just.
Well, no, everything has a place,
right?
And everything in its place.
My dad used to watch a TV program when he's watching called Lost in Space. That looks like a monster or a character out of that, like a little robot or something. Yeah.
Yeah. Hello, Unholy Hoax. Thank you for joining us today. Good to see you as well.
Kelly,
R1D1.
Kelly, it's R1D1.
R1D1.
That's exactly what happened.
Yeah.
So anyway,
in his hands
it was found that not that exact one, but the binnacle of that ship was knocked over and broken.
Yeah, so he's got his little balls in his hands, unlike the captain who had them on his face.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. DeVoe and Wright also noticed that the main hatch to the deck below was well battened down. However,
batten the hatches. Some of the hatch covers in other areas had been removed, and they found tossed about near the other hatchways. Now, upon closer examination, they found very little water in the galley, considering they expected to find much more. She'd been out there drifting, right? And there had been storms.
Yeah.
Now, according to some records, less than 12 inches of water was
That's
found.
quite a lot of water, really. You wouldn't expect to find 12 inches of water in a boat. You wouldn't expect to find none, or it's sinking.
Well, but surprisingly, nearly all of their provisions that were housed in there for a 6-month voyage were not damaged or spoiled. And there was plenty of fresh water still stored. Now, other reports say that there was more water present than that. But again, the provisions and the freshwater supply were fine. They were in good shape.
Is it just me? But they're saying that there wasn't a lot of water. If there's 12 inches of water in your boat, you'd be bloody worried. I'd be worried. I'd be like,
I don't know.
Is this sinking?
A lot of boats have.
There shouldn't be any water in the boat.
Yeah.
I think the wooden boats in particular, I think it isn't unusual to have a bit of water.
Well, I mean, and we're talking about some seriously stormy waters. Now, granted, they kept it. These boats were sealed well enough.
The batten down the hatches was going on.
Batten down the hatches. A little bit of seeping in, and I think all ships, they had pumps. And getting back to this one, I think the pump was broken on this one they found later on, or one of them was. But in any case,
no. Apparently, Sailor Duffy says that they have a bit of water for ballast. I don't know what that means, but
okay.
Is that balance? Maybe.
No, I think he's right with ballast.
Ballast. Is
Ballast.
Is that ballista like a weapon?
I'm confused.
Yeah,
No, anyway, yeah.
So am I, but carry on.
Well, the only evidence signs that they found, they didn't get the answers as to why anybody would leave, but what they did see was that the poor weather conditions had probably taken its toll on the ship, and maybe that contributed. But upon entering the captain's cabin, crewman DeVoe found Captain Briggs' log, and it read, quote, Monday, November 25th, or Monday, I don't know if it was November, Monday 25th at 5 o'clock, made Island of St. Mary's, bearing east-southeast at 8 o'clock Eastern Point, bore south-southwest 6 miles.
What date is this?
Distance. This was Monday the 25th.
But what date is this that they found
November.
it?
I'm sorry?
What date are they actually finding it?
December 5th.
So that's 10 days earlier.
Mm-hmm. Yep. DeVoe also entered the mate's cabin, and he found a chart that tracked the ship up to November 24th. And I have an image of that to show, if you want to show that as well. It shows the possible, or it charted the course in which she went. So
is that?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yep. So that was the last, both of those, just different images, were the last logged location of where she was. Now, other items that were missing from the ship.
Danielle drew that circle as well.
You know what, Lisa?
That's an oval, Lisa. It's not even a circle.
Okay, so it's not a circle, but it is enclosed.
It's an oval.
So other items missing from the ship were more navigational equipment. It was the items like the sextant and the chronometer. And if you're not knowing what those are, I have a couple images to show you what those look like. Yep. On the left there is the sextant, and
I knew that was the sextant. What's a chronometer? Is that like just
chronometer.
Is that a clock?
So all of this all of these had to do with knowing and finding your location amongst the stars and everything around you, the moon and everything.
So if you're buggering off on a lifeboat, you might need these.
Yeah, so it's really odd, right? So other things that were missing were the navigational book from the ship, a bill of lading, which the bill of lading would be, they had this cargo of alcohol. The bill of lading was a document that was issued by a carrier to acknowledge receipt of the cargo for shipment and the ship's. Oh, yeah. And also the other thing missing was the ship's.
Why would you take that?
Yeah. Maybe it was in the navigational book. Maybe. The log. I'm not sure. But amongst those things, those navigational pieces of equipment, the other thing that was missing was the utility boat or the lifeboat. So knowing that these items were missing,
hide that in their pocket or anything.
Yeah.
Knowing that if they've got off for some reason, they would need these to navigate.
Yeah. Exactly.
Pardon the dog.
But they did leave in a hurry. So it must have been common, like, how every profession or whatever, they have escape plans. Maybe it must have been known if you ever have to leave your ship, take these items with you, maybe. So I don't know. Knowing that
like if it's really bad storms, wouldn't you be safer on the big boat than the little tiny boat?
Yeah.
Well, you would have thought so.
We know that we know that the boat was abandoned quickly, but again, we have no answers as to why they left and why they left so quickly or even where they ended up. So abandoning a ship that was still in good condition or good enough condition to sail, that doesn't make sense, right?
No, because you would be safer on the big boat.
Yeah, you'd be safer on the bigger boat. There's food, your water, your food, the other provisions. There was shelter. And obviously the boat itself was found still in saleable condition. So what are the theories, right? What would have made them leave in such haste? Well, as well imagine, there's a few theories floating about out there. And some theories where they read more like urban legends or myths or whatever, but they are theories nonetheless.
In your opinion, Danielle,
in my opinion. So let's start out with the fact that under maritime law, whoever salvages an abandoned ship.
I'm very sorry, my dog's decided to have a massive drink.
He's taking the water out of his little ship.
I'll try to talk over him. But
I didn't know he had any.
Maritime law, whoever salvaged an abandoned ship is entitled to a certain percentage of what the vessel and its cargo are worth. Now, being that Mary Celeste was still in relatively good condition and her
cargo... Oh my God, Wiley, stop it.
Her cargo was intact.
That's about...
Those salvaging her could earn up to $80,000.
Wow.
However, Captain Morehouse, he wasn't a greedy man. And he was more hesitant than anything about laying claim. And maybe it was bad luck to do so too. I don't know. But he was hesitant, didn't really want to do that. And he would also had to have split his crew and really couldn't spare the men. And it was the first mate, Oliver DeVoe, however, that would eventually convince him to do just that and make claim of her. So just a couple of days of repair was all that was needed for her sails, and maybe a few other things to make her safe to continue. The Mary Celeste was then sailed to Gibraltar by the De Gratio's first mate, Oliver DeVoe, and the two other seamen. So once arriving in Gibraltar and anchored, the ship was placed under arrest. Now, I didn't know that inanimate objects could be placed under arrest, but apparently they can.
Did they put handcuffs on it? Did they beat it right?
It was under arrest.
Really?
So from the rumors and the theories, this is where it all really began. Apparently, the Attorney General in Gibraltar and Advocate General for the Queen in her office of...
Sorry, I'm just laughing at how well Jamie's dad knows our dog, and that's why Jamie's vanished. Yes, he does want a tiddle next. Because as soon as he has a drink, he has to go for a wee immediately.
Too predictable. Anyway, this Attorney General in Gibraltar, he was a very unlikable character. And he was also described as being very arrogant and pompous. And he also wasn't a big man. So I often wonder if he didn't have like that, what do they call that? Little man syndrome or
Projection.
Yeah. So I have a picture of this gentleman. His name was Frederick Solly Flood, which I thought about afterwards, having to do with the water. His last name was Flood.
That's amazing.
I know. So here's an image of Frederick Solly Flood. And he came up with some very strong accusations and insinuations about what he thinks happened, and nothing really based on any fact or evidence.
Is he a conspiracy theorist?
Well, I think he probably was. And he was hoping to show in his self-described way that he was a skilled lawyer and he could win this case. Now, he first surmised that the original crew, this was his first theory, he first surmised that the original crew of the Mary Celeste tapped into the alcohol that they were transporting. And
wasn't that like industrial alcohol?
Well, yeah. So he claims that they got drunk on this and
really?
that he murdered the captain, the wife, and the child. But that was quickly dispelled due to the lack of evidence. And like you just mentioned, the fact that the alcohol that was being transported was denatured and would have been nearly
methylated spirits, wasn't it? You're not going to drink that. You'd have to be very desperate.
You'd be undrinkable, and for anybody to enjoy or become drunk on it.
They'd been at sea for like 10 days. They weren't desperate for a drink. They weren't that desperate.
No, and you would think under these circumstances that they actually would have encountered some alcohol poisoning themselves before they could do any harm to anybody. So that was debunked. So then Flood went on to his next theory and his line of...
Yeah, that one was bullshit. What else can I make up?
Well, he decided that Captain Briggs of the Mary Celeste and Morehouse, the captain of the De Gradia, that they conspired to salvage the rights of the Mary Celeste, stating that Briggs had killed his own crew and then left his wife and child in some unknown and pre-arranged destination to go after later.
Like, 150 years later, he's still never been found, so that's bullshit.
Yeah, so his explanation, Flood's explanation, was after that happened that Morehouse would then sail the boat to Gibraltar to collect the salvage money owed to him, and later he would hook up with Briggs to split the money.
Yeah, that didn't happen though, did it?
Yeah.
So,
but, and that not only did it not happen, it's a ridiculous notion without any substantiation. First of all, Briggs already owned 1/3 of Mary Celeste, and his share... Yeah, his share of any salvage money would have been much less than his share of the ship. So, but being undaunted and undismayed by anyone not convinced of his first two theories, Flood went on, of course, to have a third one.
Oh my God! Of course he did.
Yep, that didn't work. Let's try this one. Now, he claims that Captain David Morehouse deceivingly persuaded Mary Celeste captain and crew to permit him to come on board. He then murdered everyone and tried to hide the evidence. And Flood even went as far as...
Just go flinging around accusations that you murdered everybody with no evidence.
Well, he even went as far as to ask a local doctor who really wasn't like a forensic scientist by any means, but he went and asked a local doctor to examine several what he called suspicious stains that were found on the Mary Celeste.
Oh no!
Some of
suspicious stains.
Yeah,
you told me that the seamen left suspicious stains.
I came back just in that wrong moment, didn't I?
Yes, Lisa.
Just asking questions, Danielle.
Oh my gosh, hold on.
Everybody's lips.
Oh no.
All right.
I'm sure it wasn't, but yeah.
So some of these suspicious stains.
On a serious note, why is this the first we're hearing about suspicious stains?
Because it was
say that they were on a knife.
Yeah, so there is a picture of there's swords, and there was
But they were on more than the swords. That was just one of the places.
Yeah, I guess they said, or he claims that they were found around and about, but
he just wanted it up. So can we trust him?
Exactly.
Really, no.
So taking a look at the sword, the doctor, looked at it and did whatever he did to determine it. But too bad.
The stain's supposed to be on the sword or the scabbard. But, see, I knew what it was called.
Look at you.
Well, it says the bloody sword. So
bloody's in there.
Yeah,
it's not blood, is it?
No, the doctor The doctor concluded that the stains were not blood at all and were probably more likely rust, or even could have been residue from anything that they might have used to cut through or whatever. But in his opinion, it was not blood.
No.
So fortunately, the American consul, his name was Sprague, and he was the Admiralty Court judge. He was the American consul. There was also an Admiralty Court judge by the name of Sir James Cochrane. They both decided they're not going to give credence to any of Frederick Sully Flood's made-up conjectures and scenarios.
I wonder why, because he's just making shit up continuously.
And
I'm actually suspicious of him. Why is he determined to blame everybody and that one is debunked?
Where were you? Where were you at the moment Mary Celeste was abandoned? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Where were you?
And who were you in cahoots with? So anyway, fortunately, Captain Morehouse of the De Gratia and his men were all cleared of any criminal involvement, and they were given the salvage rights that were owed to them. And they didn't amount to much. The salvage rights were well under $30,000, could even been like $8,000 or something. It was well under.
I can imagine. That's
Was that not a lot of money for the time, though?
Well, it would have been, but considering its cargo and its estimation of originally having been worth like an $80,000 thing, to have that little probably just was a huge letdown or disappointment. But in any case, more importantly, they were found innocent. So, of course, Flood, by now, he'd done some damage and already planted the seed of foul play with people that were following the case. And even the New York Post ran an article.
Oh my God, did that exist then?
It existed.
Been going about for a long time.
Yeah. So they posted an article, and I think I have an example of that too. Yeah. Just for your looking pleasure. It claimed that the ship was seized by pirates.
Oh, pirates! Yeah,
and that its crew crew was murdered.
Did they have eye patches on so they can adjust to the light?
I don't know. And this article even included the mention of the alleged stains of blood supposedly found. I'm sure they got that idea also from Mr. Flood.
Yeah.
But the claim of the piracy thing, only to leave the ship abandoned with all of its cargo and provisions still intact.
Barrels of rum, barrels of rum. I'll take some of them.
But there was no,
not rum,
there was no signs of a struggle or anything.
No.
No.
And outside of the ridiculous claims that Flood had made and those of the New York Post there, a few other theories did float about, including threatening weather such as sea quakes and water spouts. Now, I've heard of water spouts. I hadn't heard of sea quakes before, but obviously, it's self-explanatory. But again...
the pirates would have took the boat. Isn't that like the main...
Yeah, but they left everything.
Pirates would actually take. They wouldn't just take the stuff; they'd take the boat.
Oh, let's just go on here, get rid of it, and just steal the compass thing.
The compass thing.
Yeah, they took the navigational equipment and left everything else. It's including all of the alcohol. Come on, what are pirates known for?
We're just going to steal the compass and the little book that shows.
And be on our way.
Yeah, that's all we wanted. Bye bye.
Yeah. But in regards to the sea quakes and the water spouts, I guess that could be a theory. But again, you have to question how that would make any sense, because why would they leave the stronger vessel, the big Mary Celeste, and set up a small utility boat?
A shitty lifeboat.
Yeah. And then wouldn't there have been more damage or more water taken onto the Mary Celeste itself that they would have found?
Yeah.
If that were the case.
Yeah, you'd have seen the evidence.
If it was weather, they would have stayed on the big boat and not the little shitty boat.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So another answer to the mystery of the disappearance was proposed, that a great sea monster or a giant squid or octopus could have plucked the crew off one by one. There is a sketch or depiction of that also. Now here's the thing.
Wait a minute.
Yeah, giant squids are known to exist. They do exist.
Not at the time, though.
What's that?
That was speculated, but people...
No, it was like... People thought it was like a conspiracy theory and it was a myth.
Well, yeah. Well, hence the drawing. Yeah.
That doesn't look like an octopus.
That looks like Nessie.
It does.
It does.
It was Nessie.
It should be noted that experts estimate that the largest size of giant squids are about 39 to 46 feet, and the Mary Celeste really wouldn't have been in a big danger from something like that. And what about the missing?
That they know
because they know
recently discovered, didn't they?
Yeah.
Right. And what about the missing lifeboat? And then too, why would they have left like the belly of the ship where it could have been safe?
A big sturdy boat to get onto the little dinghy.
Stay on the big boat!
Quick, here comes the sea monster. What are we gonna do? Let's jump into the little fragile little boat.
Oh my god, there's a giant squid. Let's get on the tiny boat.
You'd throw in the alcohol at hopefully the squid drunk, you know.
Yes.
Do
something, Absolutely. Now, we cannot forget one of the bigger theories, aliens. Because aliens have been known to be a part of all of our history.
That's exactly what happened, and I've got a picture to prove.
That's not happening, right? This is
believe it or not, this has been given as possible credence in an answer to
the actual picture from the scene. And if you look on like the little people that's getting thingied up, the fourth one down is the old man baby.
Yeah, they wanted to do experiments on their weird chins and beards.
Like, oh my god, these people are sleeping with their cousins. Let's investigate.
And they've got testicles on their faces. That's good.
Let's examine the child of that who was a product of two married.
I think I've decided, Daniel, what happened.
Okay. I think he was the product of two relatives actually being married.
How dare you discredit Giorgio? How dare you?
I'm sorry, Giorgio. Okay, so let's say it was aliens, but then you have to wonder, did they all just pile into the lifeboat and then the lifeboat was taken up as their vessel up to the,
Yeah. Well, you don't know how big the ship is.
If you saw a UFO and it's like 1870, if you saw anything in the sky, because there's not even airplanes,
you're
not going to be thinking, oh my god, there's this weird thing in the sky following us. Let's get in a little tiny boat.
No. I wouldn't. I would be hiding. I'd be crapping my pants and hiding under the blankets in the bottom of the ship or something in the vessel.
Yeah, I don't know. Crapping your pants.
And you think you think they would put something in a log, like there's a weird thing in the sky because they found the log.
Maybe they thought they could get away from it and they didn't know what it was doing. Maybe. I don't know.
But they found the logs. You think they would have there's a weird thing in the sky following us.
Yeah. Well, they did find the logs up until a certain point. Like I said, November 24th, I think, was the last entry.
I actually read something because I knew you were doing this that said that the actual last recorded thing in the log was that morning that they found it. But it might have been.
Would that have been on the Celeste or on the De Gratia?
I'll find it when we're getting to the end of it.
Well, anyway, I don't know. I'm sure everyone's kind of familiar with the name Sir Arthur Conan Doyle.
Yes.
Even Sir Arthur Conan Doyle got in on this one. And in 1884, he wrote a short story called J. Habakkuk Jephson's Statement. That was the name of it.
Yeah.
And this was based on the ship crew's possible demise. He wrote of a angry, vengeful ex-slave.
Is it just me, or does he look like he should be selling ice cream? So a little quirky ice cream.
He does look like he should be selling ice cream.
Or singing in a barbershop quartet or something.
Yeah, or on a gondola or something.
Who's J. Habakkuk Jephson?
I'm not sure, but those names are
taken from a fictional book that he's wrote. It's not
those names are taken from the Bible, so I don't know. Who knows why Conan Doyle came up with the names he did, or even his imagination.
So he's based it on a real ship.
Yeah.
Allegedly.
Yeah.
And he's come up with this really weird, it's a really weird name, J. Habakkuk Jephson State. Has somebody actually spoke to him?
Well, it was a short story. I don't know. That's very, you know what? It's a good question. Because he was a respected person. Yeah.
Apparently this is the actual publication.
Yeah, it was first published. His short story was first published in a monthly Victorian magazine, and it was called the Cornhill Magazine.
And this picture, I don't know what this is.
What the hell is going on?
I don't know what's going on in this picture that they put
this
in
has to do with
magazine, but it's
ridiculous. I didn't read it all myself, but it's just skimming over it. It had to do with the ex-slave, and And there was a black stone that was given to the captain or something. And I don't know if that was for protection or something, but it is a short story if anybody's interested in it.
Yeah. Kelly's asking in the comment, what happened to the giant's nipples? I don't know if that's an actual giant or if it's supposed to be a father and son. But,
yeah, good question. I don't know, Kelly.
That's what happened. They stole his nipples and he sought vengeance and went and stabbed them with that pokey stick. And yeah.
So anyway, the short story wasn't the only thing that followed this. Later came a British film in 1935 called The Mystery of the Mary Celeste, and Bela Lugosi starred as a homicidal sailor.
Dracula, it was Dracula.
Dracula, he went to drink the blood.
Bela Lugosi, he was good. He was good for all those parts. Yep.
Yeah.
1935. It was a British film, so.
That even says Dracula in little brackets.
So we were thinking that was aliens and all this long.
Yeah, all this time it was bloody Dracula.
Bloody Dracula, I see what you did.
Bloody
there.
Dracula. Pun intended or unintended? I don't know.
For them. No, sorry. Anyway, yeah.
So then we get to probably the most plausible of theories and the one that's probably gone over the most, and that is the denatured alcohol that was on board, the methylated spirits that may have been the culprit.
Oh no, Danielle, that's aliens.
Okay, you're going to stick with
Apart
the aliens?
from aliens and ice cream men and...
Yeah. Now remember, there were a total of 1,701 barrels stored in the hold of the ship. Now, granted, the water and the air temperature in November would have been, cool at the time, but we know that Mary Celeste hit some bad weather after departing Pier 50 in New York, and the ship, without question, was being tossed around in that storm, right? And it was also quite conceivable that the atmospheric pressure could have played a part and contributed to this, because the ship was leaving the cool air temperatures of the States, but it was heading for warmer European waters.
Yeah.
Could that have played a part as well? I mean, it seems logical that there would have been some very strong and poisonous fumes arising if that was the case. I mean, with all the jostling about from the storm, and I mean, there could have been cracks in the barrels, or there could have just been some seeping of the alcohol through the barrels themselves that could have been causing some fumes.
So they could have got high, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, but that doesn't make sense, though, because it wouldn't that affected the people that then came and took over.
It all depends how long they were
subjected to them. Yeah, because if when we get to that, we find out the fumes could have been causing harm and discomfort to the crew in the form of headaches and nausea, and some people actually becoming unconscious. And then the little 2-year-old thing, the girl that was on there.
the 37-year-old baby.
Oh, God bless her. That's better for me to say. God bless the little child. But anyway.
She can't help it that her parents were cousins.
No, I know. But, I mean, this could be why, it also could be considered that the wooden barrels have that metal band around them. And if they're being knocked around down there and in the stifled air below deck, I mean, they might have thought about a spark that could have caught fire. So,
was there a fire?
Well, no, but they could have been scared of such, knowing that there's methylated spirits in there, and they were experienced, sailors and such. Now, well, here's the thing. Typically, when transporting...
Wasn't there like X amount of empty barrels?
So rumor has it, and some reports say that there were about 9 barrels that were missing. Not all reports state that, but some of them do.
Were they missing or were they empty?
I heard that they were missing, but I don't know. Could have been empty. Like Jamie said, maybe they were chucking them at sea monsters or aliens. My nose so itchy all of a sudden. So.
If they were actually empty, those could have cracked and maybe leaked and caused
the issue started.
Very well.
They had to get off.
Yeah.
Just get in the lifeboat to get away from whatever toxic that was, thinking that they were going to come back, but then the weather went to shit. And I kind of go into that too, because typically when transporting such cargo, the crew, they would regularly open the doors to allow ventilation to such a cargo. But as the crew of the De Gratia stated, they encountered several days of intense rain and storms, and they wouldn't have been able to open those. They had to keep all the hatches battened down and sealed. So one open. They'd been ripped open.
Maybe.
Well, but not enough. So one theory holds that in the morning of November 25th, that the storms had finally stopped. The crew would have taken that opportunity to then open up some of the hatches and let it ventilate at that time, because it had been the fumes had built up for days, almost like a couple of weeks, and there would have been what they said audible groaning coming from the belly of the ship. After the view of the ship's log, there were a few mentions of rumbling sounds that could be heard from the cargo hold. So,
didn't they hear groaning when they noises when they come across?
They did not themselves. The De Gratia guys did not hear that. They heard the creaking. Of the ship.
That's not different, right?
So we can also consider that maybe they only meant, like you were just saying, to leave the ship temporarily, giving themselves enough distance from the ship, still tied to it with a line or a rope, but giving them, a large distance in case there was an explosion or a fire.
But then that wouldn't really explain why they took the navigation equipment, would it?
Not really, but maybe it was common practice that, hey, anytime a captain leaves his boat, he takes these things with him. I don't know that, but
yeah.
And then for some unforeseeable reason, they weren't able to get back to the ship. Now, archived weather reports found for that day around the Azores that, yes, there was the break in the temperature, but
they got archived weather reports from the 1870s.
Yeah. And they showed that the storms returned that afternoon and that the wind and the rain picked up again. So is it possible that the crew that was on that, utility lifeboat had no choice but to cut themselves loose? Because the Mary Celeste still did have some of her sails up, and being with the wind, it might have been thrusting them at such a speed or knocking them about that they had to sever the ties, so to speak, because the lifeboat wouldn't be able to handle that. So, and after all, the navigational instruments, they weren't found on board the ship. They may have tried to make it to the nearest island, which would have been the islands of Santa Maria, which were about 6 miles away. But if that's the case, it was probably a futile attempt, because also indicated in those weather archives, the wind was moving against them if they were doing that instead of with them. So the little lifeboat probably went adrift. Or, did the little boat, did it capsize? Did they get picked up from another ship whose crew had some ill intent, like the pirates or whatever? Now,
do we know, like, if the wind was against them, where they were then getting pushed towards?
Yeah, they would have been pushed more out to sea, back out to sea.
Nah.
Is that back like towards America or towards?
Further north, maybe? That's a good question. Sorry, I don't have that answer. I failed you on that one. Sorry.
So I'll let you.
You let me off on that one? Well, anyway, if you remember, the Captain Briggs had another child. His name was Arthur, and Arthur Stanley Briggs, he became ward of his uncle, James Briggs, for just a while following his family's disappearance. Now, he ended up marrying, but had no children, and he died in the family's home state of Massachusetts on October 31st, 1931, never really knowing or having full disclosure as to what happened, what the fate of his family was. But in growing up, he did eventually, after hearing all of the stories and the theories, he tended to believe that it was the danger from the cargo that made them abandon ship.
Not aliens.
Right. Now, another interesting thing to note, there was a newspaper, the Daily Albion of Liverpool, that released an article on May 16th in 1873. And in that article, it reported that in Baudos in Asturias near Madrid, Spain, a fisherman found 2 rafts. Now, apparently one raft held 5 decomposing bodies.
Oh.
Yeah. And the second raft was flying an American flag and held 1 corpse. Surprisingly and oddly, there was never any further investigation of this, though.
That's 2 rafts, not a lifeboat.
Yeah. And no one knows for sure who they were, where they came from, and it only left more speculation. Now, did they make it to the islands?
How were they near Spain when this happened?
Which
there was a map, wasn't there? Let me go back to the map.
Yeah, they were the Azores.
Is this it?
Yep.
Right, so they're
the one on the left probably shows it better, but
yeah.
All right.
And then there was one for early on that had a map of the Azore Islands as well, but Azores. Sorry, the Azore.
Oh, go past them. Is that one?
There is that one, and then there was a map that I think we left towards the end.
That's Nova Scotia. I'll find it. You continue.
Yeah, there's a map that I think we put to the end of things. But
it's a speculation that they got on the little lifeboat. They were washed ashore some random island somewhere, and then they made rafts.
That is one of the speculations.
Wouldn't they have tried to like fix the boat up instead of making two rafts?
Yeah, I mean, maybe, but if you think about what they endured, that poor battered little lifeboat might not have had much left in it. And I don't know, it doesn't say anything about the rafts compositions. So, I mean, could they have used some of the wood from the two different rafts, or from that to make two new rafts? Yeah.
Or perhaps the aliens abducted them from the boat, the big boat.
Yeah.
Because they got in, the sea monster attacked the big boat, so they jumped in the little boat. The aliens came and abducted the little boat, and then when they finished with them, they dumped them on an island. So then they made rafts and then went to Spain.
There you go. I think Jamie
there were
found
only 5 bodies on these 2 rafts.
There was a total of 6 bodies, 1 on the one boat and 5 on the other.
But there was 10 people missing.
But there was a total of 10 people.
So 10 people have gone missing.
Yeah. So no one knows.
They're on a boat, and they're trying to say that these 6 people on 2 rafts didn't really add up, do it?
No, but they could have been pirates. The pirates could have got them, stole them.
You're just making random shit.
No, maybe the pirates want the little boat. They're not interested in the big one.
Why would the pirates want the little boat?
Because
maybe they needed another dinghy for their
a little one, yeah, because they don't want to take a big one. The big one will be noticed.
And also,
and they dropped them off on the island, is what I was going to say.
There was no investigation into these bodies. We didn't know if they were male, if they were female, if there was a little random bizarre baby as one of the bodies. Or...
It makes no sense. They said that there was no further investigation into this. So now,
there's nothing saying that they took a flag with them either.
No, it didn't say that. But
so this raft got an American flag on it. They didn't take a flag with them.
It wasn't mentioned that they did, but.
And if you're trying to like get off the boat because there's fumes and it's making you all ill, you're not going to I better take an American flag with me.
No, but maybe the lifeboat itself already had a little flag attached to it.
Maybe, or maybe that they had to take a flag with them for identification as well.
I think the fact that you're American and
but when they're American, but what I mean is if other boats are seeing them from a distance, they can see what nationality they are or where they are, because there's lots of sort of weird little strange.
Yeah, who knows? I hear. I mean, who knows what standard practice is the word, or tradition or whatever it was. But anyway, so what became of the Mary Celeste? So we got this happening. So 11 years later. 12 years later, by 1884, the old gal Mary Celeste, she'd been through a lot, and along with anyone who sailed her, because everybody came to poor circumstances if they had anything to do with her. Now, a man by the name of Gilman C. Parker, he ended up buying the aging vessel in 1884.
Why would you buy it knowing its history?
Well, there's a reason, and we'll get to that.
Oh, is he on the con?
No, listen, he loaded it with unspecified freight, and then he insured it. He insured it for $30,000.
Oh yeah.
So it was set to sail. It was set to sail to Haiti, but it never arrived. On January 3rd of 1885, the Mary Celeste got too close to some sharp coral reef just off the coast of Haiti. And being that she had insurance, Parker put in a claim.
Oh, of course she did. They did it all before.
Yeah.
But
Now,
someone used and abused this boat for just making a bit of cash off of it.
Yeah. Someone at the
how much dodginess is going on around the insurance claims on boats. Why would you have a company that insures boats? Because they're all bloody con men.
I imagine that they really had to refine and educate their investigators at some point to find out what was really going on. And as it turns out, this company did send an insurance investigator out to check it out along with some other crew.
It's pretty weird, isn't it?
And it turns out that Gilman Parker had loaded the ship with garbage. I mean, literally and figuratively.
Actual rubbish.
There was actual rubbish, and then there was also like old clothes and things like that. And then, well, first of all, none of the valuable cargo that he said he had insured was to be found anywhere. He had purposely run the Mary Celeste aground into the reef. And as soon as it happened, he had taken off the parts of the cargo that had any value whatsoever, so that he could go sell them.
Right.
Well, he was charged with fraud and criminal negligence by a ship's officer or crew against the owners or insurers. Now, here's the thing. Believe it or not, this kind of offense back then was punishable by death.
Really? Wow. Well, they're doing it quite bloody often, considering that it's punishable.
It was punishable by death. However, the case was dropped on a technicality and he walked.
Oh.
But from what we learned.
Yeah, big sigh of relief because he was shitting his little knickers.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
He probably did for a little while, but as we know, anyone associated with the Mary Celeste almost is cursed. And she wasn't going to let anyone go so easily. Parker ended up going bankrupt and he died in poverty just shortly after this. One of his crewmen...
He went like years later. It was shortly afterwards he died.
It was shortly after he went bankrupt. He obviously didn't get the claim, and he was being charged. And
so he obviously didn't die because he was poor. If it's that shortly afterwards, so did we not know how he died?
It said he died in poverty. So one can assume. I mean, he just malnourished. I don't know, and who knows what his health was prior to it anyway. But and then one of his crewmen who was in on this scheme also succumbed to an unfortunate end. He went insane and was placed in an mental institution where he stayed until his death just a few months later. Another fellow conspirator killed himself.
Did he though, or was Hillary there?
How long has Hillary been about?
Yeah, how old? I mean, with her black magic, who knows how old she really is. So within 6 months, all three conspirators responsible for the destruction of Mary Celeste were dead.
So within 6 months, he'd gone bankrupt and got that poor that he died. One of them went insane and died, but we don't know what the actual cause of death was. Right. Another one was Hillary.
Yeah. It's crazy. It's crazy.
It's crazy.
But there's more.
Oh my God.
There's more. We're almost near the end. The tragedy of the curse associated with the ship didn't end there. And there were two other ships that were involved in the investigation of the Mary Celeste that the insurance company had chartered to go over and help. Once the trial was complete for Parker and he got off on that technicality, both of these ships were lost at sea during their very first voyage following the trial. Their entire crew was lost as well.
Oh, God.
Yep, just gone, disappeared. So perhaps there's something to a sailor superstition after all.
Cursed, jinxed, cursed.
Cursed wood.
So I would just leave with this. There is a modern day experiment that was done to help explain the mystery, and it had to do with the cargo of the alcohol.
And I'm assuming that this is the only photo I've got left.
Yeah. This was a chemist by the name of Dr. Andrea Sella.
Why has he got two pairs of glasses? That's what Lisa was going to ask. They're wearing them at the same time.
No, that's goggles on his head.
Oh, right.
Yeah. So this is Dr. Andrea Sella from University of London.
That's why he's got little tiny bits of paper.
Well, she's never explained.
This is part of the experiment. So He conducted this experiment in 2006, and it was based on the known facts regarding the Mary Celeste and her cargo. So his theory is that some of the alcohol could have exploded, which would have thrown the crew aboard the Mary Celeste into a panic, of course, causing them to want to flee the lifeboat right away in panic.
Mm-hmm.
But what about the fact that there was no sign of an explosion?
Exactly what I was just going to ask, Danielle. You read my mind.
No fire, no explosions or sign of such.
You've read my mind.
Well, Dr. Stella's experiment involved butane gas and cubes of paper to simulate the wooden barrels. That's why those little cubes of paper were in there. So what he created, what? Yes?
Why is he using butane gas?
Apparently, it has something to do with the methylated gas.
Methylated,
it's comparison.
Is this what you would get from the alcohol if there was like certain conditions?
Yeah, maybe.
I'm not a chemist. I'm not sure, but being...
Why are you not a chemist?
Well, damn it, because I'm in here in this podcast.
Online course in chemistry.
Back to college, Danielle. We'll wait for you before
continue.
So, that's all right. Dr. Stella, he said, quote, "What we created was a pressure wave type of explosion. There was a spectacular wave of flame, but behind it was relatively cool air. So no soot was left behind and there was no burning or scorching." He also says, "Given all the facts that we have, this replicates conditions on board the Mary Celeste. The explosion would have been enough to blow up the hatches and would have been completely terrifying for everyone on board." And then he added, "It is the most compelling explanation of all those suggested. It fits the facts best and explains why they were so keen on getting off the ship." End quote.
Of course they're going to say that.
Right. I've got a question.
Go.
Where did the actual spark come from?
The actual what?
Spark.
You've got gas.
Ignition.
Where did the ignition come from?
It could have been that atmospheric pressure.
Was it a sailor with a pipe?
Like, yeah, because all sailors have pipe.
Yeah.
And remember, there were those metal bands that were around the barrels that may have created a spark of some sort.
Friction.
Yeah.
I'm not convinced.
You know what? A lot of people are not convinced. A lot of people aren't. And from my understanding now, so...
Yeah, but scientists are always right. They're correct.
I'm not convinced.
They're never wrong.
I had thought for the longest time that she'd met her end in Haiti when she hit the coral reefs, and that was the end of it.
Oil lamps. Good suggestion, Kelly.
No, it was a pipe, Kelly. It wasn't oil lamps. It was somebody having a little smoke.
Yeah, Mr. Hippie with the wonky eyes.
I don't know if it's aimed in Haiti then. What, are you saying something else?
Well, I don't, because later we know that this is part of the ghost ship story.
Mm-hmm.
And that people are known to have seen her after that time.
They do. They've seen it many, many times. This is, I know about this part. I didn't know all that. Gibraltar.
Yeah.
The Straits of Gibraltar. I don't know where they are in relation. I'm not very good at geography. I don't know where they are in relation to Haiti. Are they anywhere near there?
You're going to ask me more geographical stuff than I don't know. You got to ask me this question.
I didn't think you were going to bring up Haiti. Anyway, traveling the Straits of Gibraltar, there's been multiple sightings over not 150 years, 130 years. There was 130 years of sightings of this up until roughly about the year 2000.
Yeah.
They were seeing the Mary Celeste as a ghost ship, and it was that close that they were seeing it in the mist, obviously, the sailors with their superstitions, whatever, that they could tell that there was no crew on board this ghost ship. But they stopped seeing it. I checked this. They stopped. It didn't make sense, though. I did check this. I actually thought that it was found. Now, I've copy and pasted something for you.
Okay.
Right, the last reported sighting of the Mary Celeste was in 2000. That's obviously the ghost ship, not the actual real Mary Celeste, just prior to the discovery of her remains. This is what this article says. And I do remember them discovering the remains of the Mary Celeste. However, this article is saying it begs the question, is the original ghost ship finally at peace, and that's why you're not seeing it anymore? Has she finally been laid to rest? So just to check, I went and checked what they found in round about 2000, and they did. In August 2001, an expedition headed by the marine archaeologist and author Clive Cussler announced that they had found the remains of a ship embedded in the Rockless Reef. Only a few pieces of timber and some metal artifacts could be salvaged, the remainder of the wreckage being lost within the coral. Initial tests on the wood indicated that it was a type extensively used in New York shipyards at the time of the Mary Celeste 1872 refit, and it seemed the remains of the Mary Celeste had finally been found. However, I don't know how to pronounce this word, but I'm going to try. Dendrochronological tests.
Okay.
Yeah, whatever. Carried out by Scott St. George of the Geological Survey of Canada showed that the wood came from trees, most probably from the US state of Georgia, that would still have been growing in 1894, about 10 years after the Mary Celeste demise, which completely ruled out that that boat was actually the Mary Celeste.
Yeah.
However, they've not had any sightings of the ghost ship since 2000, and they were, before this bloke come to those conclusions, thinking, oh, well, they found it, so it's at peace, but they've not found it. Not found it.
Well, I do think, too, that they have what they claim to be parts of the Mary Celeste in a maritime museum in Nova Scotia. That some of its metal structure and stuff like that are there, but I don't know. I don't know how exact that is, or if that was just speculation that that's where it came from.
The thing is, right, to quickly revisit, because you said that there was 9 barrels missing. I found the thing that I read. This is what it said. 9 barrels of alcohol were found to be empty, which gave birth to the speculation that the alcohol might have been consumed by the crew. I'm not buying that. Who apparently, being drunk, might then have killed the captain and his family. Because, I mean, you get drunk and you just want to murder people, apparently.
They would have gone along with what
you've got to assume that they're drinking industrial alcohol. Which, no.
Not that. Are you kidding? That amount, however, they would have died of alcohol poisoning.
That is, yeah, they would have. But forgetting that theory that's apparently come out of that 9 barrels were found to be empty, which gave birth to that. The fact that 9 barrels were found empty, I'm not assuming that people drank it. I'm thinking that leaked and maybe caused toxic fumes and caused them to get ill, and therefore they got on a lifeboat to go away until it cleared. And the weather made the lifeboat get disattached or whatever, and they were lost at sea.
My question with the ghost ship theory, how did they know it was the Mary Celeste?
Because it says it on the side.
They apparently got close enough and were able to see.
And normally say it on the side.
They do have, their names are on there, but they would have to have gotten close enough to say that. Oh, yeah.
So if there's ghost ships, that means there'll be get ghosts of everything.
Ghost crew.
All these cars here, all these cars have had bad accidents and things like that. There'd be like millions of ghost cars everywhere. I mean, is it ghost ship?
I don't know. It's been several years since they saw any sighting of her now, but and just a recap of it all as we finish up here, it's just, if ever there was a ship that had such horrible,
it was jinxed, wasn't it? There was
it really was. It was cursed, and it makes you wonder the wood that they built this thing. Like, where
did it come from?
Yeah,
where did it come from? Or
on Spencer's Island, were they doing some black magic voodoo over there? I mean, what was going on?
Or was there an actual curse on the person that originally built it, or something?
Yeah.
So the one that I'm going to buy into for my theory, I think that some of this industrial alcohol did leak out, resulting in the 9 empty barrels. It caused either a toxic smell or that there was something going on. It maybe making them sick. So they got on a lifeboat to get away, opened up some of the hatches to let the air in, let it clear, thinking they were going to come back. The weather went to shit, and something happened. It disattached the lifeboat, and they were lost at sea. And it's a massive ocean. The ocean takes up like 2/3 of the planet. If you there's a way you can actually look at a globe and you only see water. It's like finding a needle in a haystack. They're lost.
Yeah.
I think that they just temporarily thought they were leaving. I think it's all true. I think it all happened in I think they got the fumes. that then brought the sea monster along. He could smell the fumes. They started throwing barrels. Then the UFO came and the pirates came. Everything happened. The whole thing happened.
Oh, Jamie, I love you.
I don't think anybody murdered anybody though, because you would have had signs of a struggle. There would have been evidence left behind.
So yeah, absolutely. And I tend to completely agree with you, Lisa, on what happened there. I think they were temporarily going to leave that ship. And
I don't think there was an explosion though, because there's no signs that there was an explosion.
No. Well, again, just like the experiment that chemists did,
using a gas like you've not got on the boat. I don't even understand the chemistry. Whatever, he used something. He wasn't using alcohol. He was using something else. So that, to me, why not
That's
use
flawed.
alcohol? And also,
the experiment is flawed.
The fact that he managed to blow and not set fire. He just blew little bits of paper.
How you make it sound so?
He made little block cubes of paper move. Don't tell me that you're not going to set fire to a boat. Paper and wood, they do come from trees, but they're completely different.
But I know where the ignition came. It came from the UFO.
But how hard would it have been? How hard would
There
it
you
have
go.
been? How hard would it have been for them to use the actual industrial alcohol in their experiment to get
because they knew it weren't going to work.
To get the exact same
They knew it wasn't going to work.
They had to introduce this other thing.
They knew it weren't going to work.
Because it was
well,
yes.
You know what? Just in our last couple minutes here that we have left, what doesn't sit well with me, and just being who I am, I tend to over empathize or overthink things. I have to put those poor people, if they did go out on that lifeboat and they knew that they had to cut loose, and having that little child with them and knowing that they had that child, the Briggs, he was a very Christian, patriotic family man. And then the crew that he loved and handpicked to go with him. I just can't imagine being adrift at sea and for how long, knowing what their final end was going to be, if that's what it was.
Yeah.
Did they have to suddenly start tossing bodies? I shouldn't go there and think of it,
hopefully whatever happened, it was quick.
Yeah.
I would hope. So hopefully you guys learned something about the Mary Celeste today. I learned a lot in going over this. I had never known as much about it. I'd obviously heard about it growing up, but it's still a mystery because there's no one knows what, the bodies were never found. The lifeboat was never found.
I've learned quite a bit of beards as well, about beards and weird shaped
beards.
So it's all good.
And I've learned that don't marry your cousin or you have weird man babies.
There's a reason. There's a law for that.
There's a reason, and that was it. We've showed you.
Thank you so much for joining us today, though.
Yeah.
Yeah. Next week we've got a slight change. Danielle is not going to be with us next week. We've got a true crime case lined up, but we're not going to do that because I want Danielle to do it with us. So next week we're going to do a little, just me and Jamie. We're going to go down the rabbit hole. We've done an episode of this before. If you recall, it was just like looking at random questions like, why do men have nipples? And we're just going to find it. We don't know what they are. We're just going to make them up.
I'm going to miss this. I'm going to miss this show.
Going to make them up. So if you've got any questions, burning questions that you've always wanted to know the answer to, but you've been too scared to Google it, I'll Google it for you because I don't care, because I've got a really dodgy Google history. I've looked up things like, at what temperature do you burn a human body? I'm still getting arrested. So any questions?
Do sea monsters like alcohol? There you go.
Any questions that you want to know the answer to, get your thinking caps on and tune in next Tuesday and ask us and we'll look it up for you.
Yeah.
And I'm sure Jamie, in the meantime, is going to think up some.
Already got some.
I know.
I'm sure.
Oh, he's got so many. He's got so many.
Unending library of questions.
Episode 21 of Curious Casefiles will be in 2 weeks' time, but we will be back next Tuesday going down the rabbit hole. In the meantime, thank you very much for joining us. Massive thank you to Danielle.
Yeah.
We put this whole episode together.
Well done, Danielle.
She's done all the research. She's done an amazing job, and she's going to do all of them from now on because she's amazing at it.
Cut.
Yeah, and please do like and share and subscribe and do all the things. And
and be careful if you're going for a little boat ride somewhere,
Yeah,
exactly.
Me and Jamie, at least, will see you next Tuesday.
See you
Good
later,
night, everybody.
Bye.